There we go. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emma Wolodko. I'm a project coordinator at the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, Alberta Provincial Council. We represent all Ukrainians in Alberta and have various projects and missions to help the community. So this webinar is a part of our Empowerment and Resilience webinar series. So it's focusing on empowerment through information, such as our webinar on how to become a licensed licensing for immigrant professionals in Alberta. And then it also focuses on mental health and communication, which this one is a part of. So today with me, I have Cecile Schultz. She'll be running the presentation, and I have John Shalewa, who is from the Ukrainian Canadian Social Services. They are also partnering with us on these webinars. So I'll turn it over to John to talk more about their organization.
Thank you. Ukrainian Canadian Social Services is a community-based organization, and the main objective of UCSS, which is the acronym, is to provide service not available through the mainstream service providers. We provide a wide spectrum of services, and they include settlement aid for new immigrants, providing information on various community services and services for seniors, helping with benefit and pension applications, aid in emergency situations, translation services, and so on. The services are available to all community members and have not been based on membership. All provided services are free of charge. We provide financial help for those who have hardship because of COVID. The board of directors established a community emergency relief fund in support of food and medical prescription needs. If you or somebody you know is in need, please contact our office. UCSS services are confidential, and we do not provide clients' personal information to other institutions or individuals. Now you can contact us by phone at 780-471-4477. That's 780-471-4477. Or email ucss@shaw.ca. That's ucss@shaw.ca. And the office there would help you with any questions that you may have or any help that you may require. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thank you so much, John. Okay, so now we'll turn it over to Cecile to start the presentation. So also, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to put them in the chat box or the Q&A box below. And feel free to ask them throughout the presentation, unless, Cecile, you want people to keep them till the end.
Absolutely, ask them during the presentation, and Emma offered to monitor the chat room, and she'll bring the questions to my attention and comments as well.
Yeah, so sounds good. And if you're watching this as a recording, feel free to email us with any questions you may have, and I'll forward them on to Cecile. So
that's perfect.
take it away.
So thank you, Emma, for inviting me to deliver this workshop. And communication really is art rather than science, and hence the title for this workshop. So we're going to look at how do we communicate by listening well and speaking assertively. And so thank you for being here. Also, given the challenging times we're going through, I really encourage you to be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and be gentle with each other, because it really is a tough time that we're all going through, and practice self-compassion so that you have that reserve energy to share with others. But what we're going to do today is look at some active listening techniques that will help you strengthen relationships, because so many people are working remotely now, and we're relying on technology to help us communicate. And so being able to have a reminder of some skills that we can use consciously to help us really benefit from listening well and speaking assertively. And so that's what we're going to do today. Also, this workshop might really just validate all the things you're already doing well. And usually workshops are interactive. So my hope is that everyone has fun. So even though I can't see you, I know you're there. And so I hope you have some fun with some of the materials that are being presented. And the way we'll do this is we were going to start with an exercise right at the beginning to get you engaged, but Emma and I will do a demo. Then we're going to talk about some of the benefits of active listening, and I'm going to encourage you to share in the chat room. We'll look at the skills for listening to understand, and then for speaking to be understood after you've understood the other person's perspective. And then when we wrap up, I'm going to be asking you to make a commitment of something that you're going to take away and practice so that you get really comfortable and confident and can be a good role model for others. So you get to make some new choices after the workshop is over. So this was the first thing I was going to do, is have you make a new friend by asking some questions. And so Emma, would you play with me for this one?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And what I want to do is, so often we'll ask a question and in our mind we'll be planning our answer, or we'll be thinking what we're going to cook for supper, or we'll be making a grocery list. And when we know that we're going to listen to the answer to the question and ask another question, it helps us to be present and to be focused. So what I'm going to do with Emma is ask her some questions so I can understand what she's hoping to learn from this workshop. And so what I'm going to do is ask the question, then I'm going to take something from her answer and ask another question. And so this template you can use for asking questions to really understand someone at a deeper level. So while you're listening to this conversation, think about what it would be like for you to ask questions at that deeper level, and what would it be like for you to be asked those questions, because we won't have a chance to practice them in person right now. So I'm going to encourage you to practice it later. So Emma, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first question is, what are you hoping to take away from this workshop?
So as you mentioned, I usually think about something else while I'm talking to someone, and I know people really could use a little bit extra attention right now and want to be heard. So I really want to make people feel heard.
Okay. And so what about making people feel heard is important to you?
Making people feel heard is important to me because I like to be heard as well, and I think that making people feel heard also clarifies a lot of things, and people can express exactly what they need or what they want out of a conversation, and so through that, it clarifies a lot of things.
Okay. And so what is the significance of having that clarity around what other people need?
So the significance of that is that it is, the significance of that is people feel understand, people feel heard. I'm feeling like I'm getting all of the message, and getting more clear communication, and helping them to feel supported, which helps me feel supported as well.
Okay, thank you, Emma. So let me just see if I really understand what's important to you about this workshop. And you're really looking for a way to support people in feeling heard and feeling understood, and so that you know what they really need, so that you can support them appropriately.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
All right, thank you. And that's often what happens when you listen to someone at that deeper level, and then you reflect it back to them. Did I get what you meant? And they'll say exactly, or they'll say, no, you missed out this part. So to debrief this, I want to ask you, Emma, What was it like sharing at that deeper level?
I felt supported and I felt heard, which is exactly how I want someone else to feel. And it made me, asking those deeper questions made me reflect on my own, why am I in this workshop? What am I hoping to get away from this workshop, and like getting into the nitty gritty details and digging down to those deeper levels. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And for me, asking those 3 questions got me to understand that bigger picture from your perspective, why it really matters to be able to listen well. So thank you for that. And I'm going to encourage everyone in the audience to take the time to find a friend or find someone at home and practice this. And you can ask any question initially. What is it about that you care about? And so, especially if you're in a conflict with someone, to be able to listen at that deeper level to find out the true message and what's going on for them. So, homework already. How about that? Thank you, Emma, for playing with me. All right. Okay, so let's look now at the benefits of active listening. First of all, what is active listening? How would you define it? And this is where I'm going to ask you to share in the chat, or can they say things out loud in the webinar?
If you raise your hand, there's a button at the bottom to raise your hand. I will be able to see that, and I can unmute you as well. Or you can share in the chat or the Q&A. Either one of those works. They're both at the bottom of your screen. People might be a little shy too.
All right, and I can see you, John, so I'm going to ask you, how would you describe active listening?
Now, I just asked my wife. Hello?
Okay.
Did you hear that?
You asked your wife?
No, I'm just kidding. Active listening, well, of course, yes. You have to obviously be keyed in on the person that's talking to you. And what I was going to say is integrate with that person entirely. I mean, listen to what they have to say, and then obviously they'll listen to what you have to say. You may have discrepancies on the viewpoint that you're looking at, but you may have good points that you have, and then the other person also the same thing. And hopefully the two meet together and you come to a consensus.
Okay, thank you. So you can see where you share common ground and also where you have different ideas. Okay.
Yes.
Someone who replied here in the chat saying relaying information, understanding and comprehending the information, and talking back.
Beautiful, thank you. And so if you can relay information, comprehend information, build on common ground, and also recognize where you see things differently, what are the benefits from your perspective of active listening?
Well, you can learn a lot of things from the other person, and know that I have a lot of mentors in my life that I listen to, and they're in their 80s, and I learn a lot from them. So I listen to them very carefully.
Isn't that beautiful when we can learn from each other? Okay, anything in the chat, Emma?
There's nothing in the chat right now. I would add to that yeah, once you understand and comprehend it and relay it back, you may be right in your understanding, you may be wrong. So just doing that check-in, saying, did I understand? Did I repeating it back to them helps you know if you're understanding it or if you missed something or got something wrong.
And that's so powerful, is because when I was thinking about this when I was preparing, I also thought active listening starts to build trust. Because I know when I'm sharing something, you're going to be present, you're going to listen, and you're going to make sure you understand what I'm trying to share. It also builds connections in relationships, either personal or professional. And one of the quotes I put is the highest form of respect is to be heard. So when someone takes that time to hear us, we really feel respected. It also, asking those questions encourages honesty, provides clarity, and that was one of the things I learned from Emma when I was asking her questions. It prevents us from making assumptions. Because so often, if our brains don't like fill in the blanks, so if we don't have all the information, we just make stuff up. And then we'll make decisions based on it and we'll tell other people. And sometimes we're wrong. And so being able to say, wow, I'm assuming this, is that right? And people could say, no, that's not it at all. And so checking out those assumptions. And so those are some of the benefits I thought of. And communication and active listening really is a big thing. And I love this quote by John Woods where he said, you cannot not communicate. Everything you say or do or don't say or do communicates a message to others. And a lot of the books on communication talk about how most of what we communicate is nonverbal, is that energy we bring into the room. The tone of our voice usually lets people know our emotion. Like, have you ever phoned someone and as soon as they said hello, you said, what's wrong? Because the tone of their voice was giving you a clue to their emotion. Or did you just win the lottery because they sound so excited? And so being aware and listening to tone, listening to the energy they're bringing into the room, and being really careful that when we're only communicating remotely and by text message and by email, you want to share the tone of that message. You know, I'm really excited or I'm really worried. And also body language communicates our intention. So share the intention when you're communicating just with words so people don't have to guess, don't have to make assumptions. And that's so powerful. And when you talk about body language, one of my biggest examples is when I first became a Baba, because I'm Ukrainian, and I love my grandchildren to the moon and back, and I would do anything for them. But I remember one day when Lincoln was about 6 months old, and I was going over to see him after work, and I had a really tough mediation, and I was just drained of energy. And I walked into their house, and when he saw me from a distance, he had this big smile on his face because he saw me and he recognized me. But as I got closer, he just started crying. He was like, and he was just crying. And my son has taken active listening training. And he just said, Mom, are you coming straight from work? And he knew that little Lincoln was picking up my energy. And he was showing my stress by crying when he saw me. So it was such a powerful lesson to, on my way to see my grandchildren, I now make sure that I'm listening to soft music on the way, and I'm breathing and I'm managing my thoughts so that they pick up the energy that I really intend. So be aware too of what energy do you bring into a meeting, or what energy do you bring home after work, or what, if you're working from home, what energy is interacting with you and your family, and to just be really aware of how much that communicates.
I actually have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Oh,
Do you have any
yeah,
tips for how to kind of be aware of that body language and nonverbal communication over Zoom, something like this? Because I know it's harder to pick up on that kind of nonverbal communication when you're not in the same room as someone.
Yeah, and so being really aware of, I can only see your face in a little square. And so if I think I'm looking at you, you may think I'm looking somewhere else, because I know my kids say, Mom, look at the little green dot. And it's, you know, it's like, so if I'm looking at the little green dot, I really can't see you. so that is where the words have to matter so much more. We can hear the tone, which is beautiful. We can see someone's face, and our faces really give a lot away on our emotions. But it's being able to say, you know, you look like you're really frowning or you're really smiling. You know, what's happening for you right now? So that always be curious. You know, and it could be, I'm worried because I have another meeting right after this one and I'm not ready for it yet. And so then you can say, how can we be efficient right now? So we can, you know, get a project update and move on. And so really encourage others to be open and transparent, because we don't have that energy. I can't sense your energy as we're on a Zoom meeting. And most of us are spending a lot of time in front of our computer screens. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know if you watch a lot of TED Talks or videos, and Amy Cuddy she wrote the book called Presence. And she said, when we're meeting new people, and this works on Zoom too, she said in that first 20 seconds of interaction, our intuition is answering two questions. And one is, do I trust you? And the other question is, do I respect you? And so our bodies are really clued into our surroundings and the people we're interacting with. So being aware of that can really help you make some new choices, because we're all coming from different stories, from different backgrounds, and we want to be sure that we're communicating in a way that connects us to other people. Because here's a really good little exercise that you can answer in the chat, or is when we're listening to understand, we really want to be sure that we can see the situation from the other person's eyes. So how many of you see a frog? Can we see hands? Or how many of you see a horse?
Oh, one hand is up.
Okay. How many of you see both?
One,
I can't see
one
the
hand. So
no one can see both?
one person can see both.
One person can see both. And so the rest are seeing frogs, one seeing a horse. So frog people, what are you going to do with the person that's seeing a horse? Of course.
I guess we'll give people just a second to put it in the chat. I know I can't see a horse.
You can't see the horse?
I don't know about you, John.
What can you see, John?
Well, I see the frog, but I'm trying to figure out the horse here, but I don't see it.
And I'm loving what's in the chat. If someone's seeing the horse and you're seeing the frog, calling them a liar. So that's going to be really good for building relationships. What that horse is facing up, saying, come on. Okay. So if you're seeing a frog, the other person is seeing a horse, you could do some other things. Like you could say, show me where you're seeing the horse. Because you can't see the horse, right, Emma?
I just saw the horse after someone put in the chat, the horse is facing up. It made me change my perspective a little bit. And so that was very helpful.
And that's exactly, it's like, yeah, like this is where the horse is. And so those of you, and someone else just all of a sudden can see both. And sometimes it is just, show me the horse, or show me the frog. Tell me how I can see it. So those that are still waiting to see the horse, it's like it's lying in the water here. That's its mane. These are the ears. Can you see my little mouse? This is the horse's eye. That's the other eye socket. There's the horse's nostrils and the horse's mouth. Can you all see the horse now? And for the person that saw the horse and couldn't see the frog is like sitting on, this is like its little seat. That's the frog's eyes, frog's mouth. This is its little leg. That's its little still part tadpole. So now can everyone see both?
Yes.
So thank you. So this is when we're talking about how we see things differently. And this is a simple example. But another example is I have 9 brothers and sisters. So when we talk about an event that happened a year ago or 10 years ago, it's 10 different stories. It's like, that didn't happen. This is how it happened. And so we see things in our life or in our work based on what's going on for us at that time. And so being able to, if you're confused by how another person's seeing a situation, is ask those questions. Share your perspective, help me to understand. And that's really what active listening is all about. Doesn't mean you agree with them. It just means that you're struggling to understand their perspective. Okay, so this listening to understand, I put this slide here again because it fits in with the next slide in what are we listening for? And so ABCs is like, always be curious. Ask questions like a 2-year-old. Like they are just so curious. And so starting to be curious too. When you ask questions, listen for their answer. I've had people say to me that, you know, my coworker asked me a question, and as soon as I started talking, they pulled out their phone and started flipping through their text messages. And so they said, I just stopped talking and walked out of the room. So it was like adding fuel to the fire, but it's being aware of how our presence and listening is so important. So if you're having an important conversation, put your phone away, turn away from your computer screen so that you're not distracted from the other person. And wanting to listen first creates space for them to then hear you when you're sharing your perspective. And so what are you listening for? And when I was listening to Emma earlier and sharing back that, you know, she's looking to be heard and also to understand, to have clarity and to be supportive. Those were some of her needs, and that's what we're looking for. And Abraham Maslow set up a hierarchy of needs for us to start understanding that sometimes people are in different places with what's going on in their life. But it always starts with, unless our physical needs for food and shelter and air and sleep and water to drink are met, we're not too concerned about anything else. But once those needs are met, then we start looking for our needs around safety and security, being safe from disease, being safe from harm, you know, having some sense of stability in our life. And once those needs are met, then our social needs for belonging, for being included, for connecting, for being appreciated show up. And our ego needs for being respected and having that recognition and having a good reputation, those all start surfacing. And as we move higher up the scale, you know, that need for independence, for confidence, for competence, there are so many needs. And as we get all of our needs met, then that self-fulfillment is that freedom to give back from our abundance, to make a difference, to help others. And a few years ago, they added another level of needs, and that was transcendence. And it's the people that, because they lived, are still inspiring us today. You know, when I think of people like, you know, Gandhi and, you know, Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa, there's so many people that still inspire us to be the best version of ourselves just because they lived. And so that's what we're listening for. And if you think about the pandemic, You know, you may have been in that place of economic well-being, independent, you know, good at your job, and then, you know, COVID happened and you got laid off. And so think about, how has the pandemic changed the world in terms of needs? How has it changed you in terms of your needs? Just think about that for a moment and reflect it in the chat if you like, or in person as well. It's just another way to look at the needs. And this is just a little sampling. But so often when we're communicating with others and listening to others, we often have no idea where they are in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of need, and being able to recognize where someone else is coming from. Like if I'm in that place where I want to be appreciated and included, and you're just trying to pay your rent and feed your kids, you know, you're not going to get where I'm coming from until I listen to you first and say, wow, so right now you're just working on surviving. So thank you for sharing that. Okay. Any other comments, questions around needs?
I don't know if you saw this one in here. Someone said I'm needed more and have less time for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, and that's when you recognize that. It's like, how do I practice self-compassion so I can fill my own bucket, so then I have something to give others. And I have a note in my bathroom mirror. It says, book a meeting with yourself. Even if it's a minute, once a day or twice a day, to just stop and listen to your breath. To just take some time for you. And that's that self-care piece. How can I be sure I'm eating well, I'm getting enough rest, when there are so many demands on my time? You know, and I can just imagine people that are trying to work from home and homeschool and, you know, stay on top of the bills when there's so many things going on. Like, that's when I said earlier, like, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, because people are going through really tough time. And here's some themes from the sandbox, and these keep showing up in our life all the time. And I often get calls from organizations to mediate a conflict, and I'll hear, and they'll say, the kids aren't playing really well in the sandbox, and they're not joking, because those needs that weren't met when we were children keep showing up in all our relationships as they go on and on. And I hear my grandchildren saying to each other, you're not the boss of me. You can't tell me what to do. And then I hear it at work. You know, she's not my supervisor. Why is she always giving me things to do? You know, and that's that need for independence and autonomy. You know, trust me, I can tie my shoes myself. You know, I can do my own projects. And that other piece about you can't play. And that's one of our deepest needs, is that need for belonging. And I hear about it in workplaces all the time. Like, this was pre-COVID. And it was, she walked by everyone's desk and asked them to go for coffee, and just walked right by my desk and didn't ask me. And that's that need for belonging and inclusion. And so being so aware is those needs just keep surfacing. I still remember that from grade 3, not being picked for soccer because I couldn't run very fast, or I couldn't kick a ball. And those needs keep showing up as we grow up. And then the other piece about her piece is bigger than mine. You know, that's not fair. You hear children say that, but in the adult world, it's, how come she always gets to pick vacation first? How come, you know, she gets more time off and I'm stuck working on the weekends. And so that awareness, that fairness is so important, that recognition that we all matter. And so just keeping those needs in mind when you're listening to other people, to really understand what's motivating them. What are they trying to protect? What are they trying to achieve? And so when you seek first to understand, you want to listen with your heart. And that's when we listen with empathy. Active listening is about listening with your heart, with your eyes, with your ears, with your whole self. And empathy is about meeting people where they're at and helping them by acknowledging their emotions and the situation they're in. And Emma's going to have us look at a short video to help us understand what empathy is and what empathy isn't. So do you want to show the video now, Emma?
Yeah, if you could just
Stop sharing? Okay. There.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
I can.
Yeah, okay.
So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So now do I go back to share my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, look at me, technology, go. There we are. Can you see it now? Okay, and so being able to pay attention is, as we talked about earlier, is so important, because you can't fake being sincere. You know, you may say all the right words, but if your heart's not in it, people are going to know that. And then seeking to understand. I love acronyms. And so I love this one for using your ear, and it's empathy, attention, and respect. And when we think about defining respect, it's that being able to see each other as equal to ourselves, no matter who they are, and treating them that way. And I love this quote by Alan Charland. And when you're listening to someone, so often in my mediation practice, I'll have couples finishing each other's sentences. And then the speaker will say, well, I wasn't going to say that this time. So catch yourself if you're saying, oh, I know what she's going to say, and you stop listening, you tune out. And so being present, being mindful is always a choice. And that's how we show respect to each other. So what I'm going to do is more homework. And Emma, if we have time at the end, we could do a little demo of how do you ask questions, how do you empathize, so that you can really practice using that ear. So this was the exercise I'm going to encourage you to do on your own time, is find a partner and, you know, either share something really exciting or something really stressful that you're trying to make a decision on, and your partner will listen, ask those open questions, empathize, and then summarize. And sometimes just someone asking us those questions without giving us advice or telling us about how their life is worse than yours, we can come to our own answers. You know, if someone just holds that space for us to talk it through on our own, we can come to our own answers. So I'm going to really encourage you to practice these skills so that you can be actively listening, reflecting back so that you understand the other person, and then it's your turn to talk. And that's the speaking to be understood. If somebody's full of their own worries and you say, let me just tell you what's going on for me, they may not have room in their brain to hear you. So if you listen to them first and then say, now can I share what's been going on for me? They may have that room to hear you. Very rarely is someone going to say, nope, I'm not. I really don't care what's going on for you. When you listen to them and model that respect, then they'll create that space for you. And so the way to do that, speaking to be understood, is all about assertiveness. And there is such a continuum of how we make requests, how we set boundaries, how we provide feedback. And if you think about the people in your life that may be very passive, they'll say, yes, sure, we can do that. Sure, we can have that for dinner again. Like, sure, I'll take those phone calls, you know. And people that say yes and are very passive often are just caring about the relationship. On the other end of the continuum are people that behave in a really aggressive way. And what they're looking for is results. And often they'll say things like, this isn't personal, it's a job, like, let's just get it done. Or they can be really charming and you don't even know how they got you to do half of their work. But all they're looking for is results. They're not considering the relationship. And then there's passive aggressive people and behaviors. Do you know any of them in your life? That they may say, yes, I'll do it, and then they won't. Or they'll say, sure, I'll do that. And then they'll do a really crappy job, so you never ask them again. And so, or they won't say anything in a team meeting about how to handle a project, but they'll walk out of the meeting and say, well, that's never going to work. They didn't think about this. And so passive aggressive behaviors, that could be a whole workshop on its own. But when you're dealing with behaviors like that, and I don't like to label people, but those are behaviors and their choices, is actions speak louder than words. Believe their actions more than their words. So any other examples of passive aggressive that you want to share? Anything in the chat?
Nothing right now. People are being shy.
People are shy. Okay, you can talk about it after. And when we recognize, even people that behave passive aggressively, that's their best on any given day. And so being able to coach them, support them, to be able to honor their commitments and follow through, or have that pride in their work, and being able to encourage them that way. Because when we're choosing to be assertive, and this really is a choice, very few people are naturally born assertive. And assertiveness means I'm going to respect the relationship, and I'm also going to look to get good results. And so it's that combination of respect for the relationship and for myself, and also to get results. And so the way to do that is being able to look at, how do I ask for what I need? How do I set boundaries on behavior? And also, how do I give positive feedback? Because if you think of, and it's using Imessages, and I'm going to give you another acronym to practice, but it is using I language. Just, I'm going to read you the statements for the Imessages and just sense how they land on you. You never consider anyone else's opinion. You don't let anyone get a word in edgewise. You make me so furious. You scare everybody. The way you treat me is terrible. So hearing all those you messages, what effect do they have on you?
Well, I'd feel very bad if somebody thought of me like that.
Okay.
I suppose you have to gain that respect so that people won't be saying this to you, I guess.
And yet they could provide that same feedback by saying things like, I'd really like to have my opinion considered, in our discussions. So then you're not going to feel defensive or attacked.
Yeah,
Or
so put in the chat here, they cause you to feel like you need to be defensive.
Absolutely. You sounds like an attack. And when we feel attacked, our instinct is to attack back or defend ourselves. So the way to mitigate it, even though we need to provide that input, is to use Imessages. So thank you for whoever shared that. And, so I really appreciate having my opinions considered in our discussions. Instead of saying, you make me furious, saying, I'm frustrated. Instead of accusing them of scaring everybody, because we like to bring in the troops when we're, blaming and judging others. Say, I feel anxious. I'm nervous. I'd like to improve our relationship. And so what effect does hearing the I messages have on you as opposed to the you messages? Any comments in the chat?
No, I think people are being shy again.
Okay, and that's
Well,
okay.
I just want to say, well, now you're talking about yourself, right? So
Yeah.
you can improve. And that's what I thought about the you. I was thinking that was a negative thing about yourself. So then you go to the I situation and you're letting yourself not out in the open that way.
And you're being vulnerable and you're being honest. And that's the beautiful thing, is people won't argue with an I message, but they may get defensive and argue with a you message or attack you back.
We have another comment here saying they share the emotional response without the attack.
Beautiful. What a smart group. Thank you. Yeah, we can share the impact on us without blaming and judging the other person. Okay, and so the way to do this is to use a desk model. This skill alone changed my life. So you describe exactly what you're seeing, hearing, or the situation without using the word you. So it's like if I took a tape recorder or a camera and took a picture, this is what I saw, this is what I heard. State the effect on you. You know, when I was yelled at, I felt embarrassed. Be really specific about your request. I'd appreciate getting feedback in private. And then the collaboration is inviting that mutually positive benefit. That way we're going to have a really good working relationship. And this message, if you're into tattoos, you can tattoo it on the inside of your arm so that anytime you need to set a boundary or ask for what you need, you can pull out this iMessage and use it. I've had people that I've coached say, I printed this off really big and put it on the back of my office door. So if I'm on the phone, I can just use the formula. It really is a formula, and it covers asking for what you need, describing the situation without blaming, without judging, and without making the other people guess. Because I know before I learned this skill, I used to think, well, you should know what I want. I shouldn't have to ask. And so I would go around shoulding on everybody. And that's SHOULDING. So you don't think I'm swearing, but I would think you should know. But people don't. They're too busy trying to get through their own lives to wonder about what's important to me. So I have that responsibility from self-respect to say it out loud. They still may not do it. So this doesn't come with a guarantee, but every time you model assertiveness, you're training people how to treat you. And you're helping them to understand your perspective. Because most people aren't in this workshop, so they don't have these skills. So here's some examples of desk models for iMessages. When my ideas are laughed at, I feel embarrassed. I'd like to have my input considered. That way we can build synergy on the team. Or when I'm waiting 2 days for a response, I feel annoyed. It's important for me to rely on support on this project so we can build a strong working relationship and meet our deadlines. So no one's going to argue with an iMessage or an assertive expression. And it really is, every time you use one of these, it is an invitation to a conversation. So practice, if you have little children at home, practice with them so then they can deal with, you know, bullies in the playground or peer pressure as a teen, and being able to model these skills for each other. Great way for giving positive feedback. You know, when 3 people offered to help me on this project, I was so grateful. I really appreciate the help and support on our team so we can all relax and have fun this weekend. It's going to be 9 degrees, by the way. And so using it for positive feedback so that people know that you recognize the support they're giving you. So great way to respond to emails. You can say the desk model in any order. Just be sure you use all 4 parts. If you're dealing with someone who's very much results orientated, to be able to start with the mutual benefit. You know, for us to meet our deadlines and have a great team, I'd really like my input considered because I'm embarrassed when my ideas are laughed at. So backwards, forwards, any order, just use all 4 parts. Great way to respond to emails and text messages, that push buttons, to be able to say, wow, when I read this comment, I was surprised. You know, I'd really appreciate some clarity. So we're both working from the same place. And so being able to use it in all your conversations. Keep it simple, but it really is a life-changing skill. And it is an art that you can learn. So there's your more homework, more practice. So think of positive situations, think of someone you want to set a boundary with, and write it out. Sometimes just writing it out, you can let it go. You don't even need to say it. I know in mediations, I'll have clients write out their desk models before they come to the mediation. And I'll say, so what sort of communication guidelines do you want? And they'll say, well, I thought about it. And they'll pull out their notes and read their Imessages so that they can really ask for what they want in a clear, respectful way. So I encourage you to adopt this skill as well. It's a dance. Listen first and speak second. And so to wrap up, there's more homework. And I love this quote by Bob Carey about kindness. And he said, it is the most powerful, least costly, and most underrated agent of human change. And Dalai Lama said, be kind whenever possible. And then the second part of the sentence is, it's always possible. And so when things are tough, you want to think about, how can I be that change agent? What can I do differently to make the world just a little better, and to practice the art of communication? So I want to ask you to all think about one thing that you can commit to doing differently after this workshop to practice the art of communication. And you can practice with each other. And I know things are challenging, things are tough, but it's a choice you can make to make that road a little smoother, I hope. So any questions, comments?
Well, I just wanted to say wonderful information, and I've learned a lot from it. I try to practice it in my life, and hopefully I'm not doing too bad of a job, but it's nice to be reminded. Thank you so much, Cecile.
Thank you. And it's being able to recognize that, you know, we're doing a lot of things well. And like you said, sometimes just someone reminding, like, yeah, you're doing that. No wonder my relationships work. Okay, so do we have time to read one more little poem before we go? It's 1 o'clock and I really want to respect the time. Shall we end it now?
Is it quick? I know I'm in the office today and someone needs this room.
Someone needs the room. Okay, and so I'll just share what it is. It's okay. If all else fails, what we can do is we can always choose our attitude. And so to wake up in the morning and say, today I'm going to choose a positive attitude and I'm going to be the best version of myself. And that's something we have that freedom to choose no matter how tough things are. And I encourage you to practice the art of communication. So thank you for being here, even though I can't see you, I know you're there. And I hope you found some benefit in taking the time to be part of this workshop. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Emma, for participating. Thank you, John, for joining as well.
You're welcome.
And thank you to all of our participants. I sent out this PowerPoint earlier in the week, but if you signed up later or for some reason didn't receive it, I will be sending it out again today so you can review all of this and do your homework. And yeah.
Okay, and can you send me the link to the webinar so I can give myself some feedback?
Yeah, I will for sure. Oh, we have someone saying thank you in the comments. Yeah, well then I'll just end it here. So thank you so much, both of you. Thank you, everyone else, and have
thank you. Enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye.
Enjoy. Thank you.